You might have seen that Californians have voted to make daylight saving time permanent all year long. Last night they approved Proposition 7 by 60%, willing to sacrifice some early morning sunlight in the winters in order to have longer nights in the summer and cease switching back and forth. It's that time change where we spring ahead and lose an hour of sleep that hurts our health. Backers pointed to a 2014 study in journal Open Heart that showed that the time change is linked to an increase in acute myocardial infarction, AMI, aka heart attacks, noting that the Monday following springtime changes was associated with a 24% increase in daily AMI counts. Now, trying to get kids out of bed an hour earlier, that's no easy chore either, maybe one of the other reasons. Either way, voter approval is just the first step. Both the state House and the Senate have to approve it, not just by a simple majority, but by 2/3 vote. And the governor would have to sign off on it. And assuming all that happened, it would still be an uphill battle. Here's why. Now, I was surprised to find so many changes to daylight saving time. We've had it in this country since it was first introduced back in 1918. Mainly that in 1966, Congress passed the Uniform Time Act to put an official time and date on the calendar to both start and stop daylight saving time. Now, this is where Hawaii and Arizona are different. They simply choose to remain on standard time all year long. No law against that, which brings us back to California. Now, if California wanted to join both Hawaii and Arizona on standard time approval at the state level, that would be good enough. But since it wants to essentially challenge the federal Uniform Time Act, it would also need congressional approval. So what are the odds we have to worry about our neighbors to the south being on a different time zone half the year? Well, here's the deal. In Florida, lawmakers approved the Sunshine Protection Act. That was earlier this year. Didn't hear much about it. The governor signed it. Senator Marco Rubio introduced it to Congress. So where has that gotten us so far? It's gotten to a couple committees, not really gotten any traction anywhere. Nothing's really happened with it, which means probably have to re-up it. So until that actually gets some traction in Congress, I'm not going to really talk about or get it. No need to get into the implications of what might happen if California were to switch or stay with daylight saving time. I'm getting from Pierce County Sheriff right now that this is from their Twitter account. Male is confirmed, suicidal male, acted alone, 29-year-old Pierce County resident, working on a background check of him now. And I have been, we had the caller, Glenn, from a few moments ago who was talking about, who had all the background, was the pilot, the private pilot, and he was getting a lot of that flight aware. And I've been, if you're wondering why I've been on my phone for quite a this, I've had a lot of people sending me texts and some of this flight aware information, looking at the patterns, but I've got a lot of information. We're just trying to basically figure out what it all means. And you probably know this better than I do, there is a way to download air traffic control audio, and I've had a lot of that text sent to me, and I've been reading it, and it sounds like some of the things you've been talking about might have been part of the problem as far as being low on fuel, or possibly some cabin pressure problems when they were not being, not able to get him to be where they wanted him to be. And so they were trying to, it sounds like they were trying to solve a variety of issues, but we haven't been able to confirm that yet, which is why I'm trying to hold off on it. So we're just trying to give you tidbits as soon as we get them. But the information has been sparse so far. I mean, obviously, we can tell you that the plane went down on Ketron Island. The images are, it's hard to put this in perspective with a night view. But we can tell you that there are, like, again, 11 homes or so on Ketron Island. Most of those are inhabited year-round. But they don't have, anybody on the island, per se, no fire district. They rely on fireboats, or they rely on themselves to be able to put fires out. All right, we talked about this earlier today, the HOV lane, and this has always been a fun topic for me. The State Patrol is now this week cracking down on those of you who decide to ride in the HOV lane, either with the dummy or just by yourself in the dark, and maybe think you can get away with it. Does a dog count? Dog does not count. All Being pregnant does not count, but having little ones does count. Okay. Believe me, I know this inside and out. So all those drivers, State Patrol are doing a huge emphasis patrol all week long, specifically looking for these types of violators. Apparently, the number of complaints is up all across the region. People who get caught face a $136 ticket, and State Patrol says hopefully they can increase that penalty someday.
For too many people, the $136 simply isn't a deterrent, and so we'll be working legislatively to address that, to put some teeth into the penalty for it.
So the question is, who's violated that? And now there's some tricky rules. I
have a legit question. You know how sometimes we've been going through a lot of construction right now on I-5, with Revive and all that. So when they go down to 2 lanes, when it's one normal lane and an HOV lane, but all the other ones are coned off, are you then allowed to use the HOV lane since all the traffic is funneled into 2 lanes
want to
anyway?
guess? I know the answer to this.
I'm going to guess yes, because I had to do it.
I would say no.
You cannot unless it is marked, and I've seen the markings on this either on a sign or overheads, and they will say HOV lane open to everyone, and unless it says that, you're not allowed. Now this is where I'll make my admission, because the other night it goes down for 2 lanes, and I'm like, I'll just hop in there to let everybody merge, and then I'll get back in. Well, I was breaking the law and didn't know it. I'm Greg Copeland. There's a new allegation against the man seeking a spot on the nation's highest court. A college classmate is leveling an allegation against Brett Kavanaugh, and he is responding tonight. This is King 5 News. It is a new sexual misconduct accusation against President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh. Another woman has now come forward. Deborah Ramirez says Kavanaugh exposed himself to her while they were students at Yale University back in the 1980s. Kavanaugh says it did not happen. He released a statement saying this: "This is a smear, plain and simple. I look forward to testifying on Thursday about the truth and defending my good name and the reputation for character and integrity I have spent a lifetime building against these last-minute allegations." Now, also testifying on Thursday, Christine Blasey Ford, who claims Kavanaugh assaulted her when they were in high school. ABC's Kelly O'Donnell has that part of the story tonight. Now, it's important to remember that at a time like this, help is never far away, especially for first responders. Here we see them in a procession escorting the officer's body today. It's a heartbreaking time for them. Code 4 Northwest is a volunteer group comprising first responders who reach out to therapists to help other first responders who have dealt with trauma on the job.
Trauma and tragedy occurs in an instant, and usually support rallies around that person or persons really quickly. But unfortunately, as the crisis settles, people start to dissipate. So it's really important for agencies like Code 4 to connect people who have experienced tragedy with ongoing resources like counselors with acuity or treatment programs or even just peer support groups.
That was Colleen Hilton, a therapist at Acuity Counseling. Hilton donates her services to first responders. She says it's crucial to reach out for help in a time like this. Now, a former Tacoma police officer knows all too well the guilt that can come with an accident like this. He's been living with it for more than 30 years. King 5's Ted Land is live now with more on that story tonight. Ted?
Well, Greg, as rare as something like this is, there are other police officers who've endured a similar tragedy on the job. One of them is a retired Tacoma police detective who experienced all of the emotions and knows what it takes to overcome all of that.
During a struggle with an armed suspect in 1986, Dave Paul, then a Tacoma police officer, accidentally shot and killed his partner.
It was 32 years ago, and I would say there's probably not a week that goes by that something, I don't think about it.
Paul eventually returned to work thanks to the support of his colleagues, family, and friends.
I think the first night back out, I wanted to be just strictly a one-man car. It was something in my mind says, no, I don't want another partner right now. And I went on just a routine call.
He says he'll never forget what happened next.
Came back out and jumped in the car, and there's like 2 police cars parked up the street. They're kind of watching after you. I said, so you guys my guardian angels tonight? And they basically use this for however long it takes. You walk out the door to go to work, you leave one family, you go to another family. You're there for those guys, and they're there for you.
Paul says he wants to help the Kent Police Department get through this, and particularly the officer who hit the other officer. Paul says if that officer wants to speak with him in the coming weeks or months just to hear his story and talk about the emotions, what it takes to get through that, he says he's there for him. Live in Kent, Ted Land, King 5 News.
And stay with King 5 for continuing coverage as we learn more about the fallen police officer and the investigation. We'll also be providing the latest details on king5.com. Oh, we just got some video into the King 5 newsroom a few moments ago. This shows a train derailment in Burlington tonight. BNSF says 7 cars derailed, 5 of them tipped over. No reports of any injury and no reports of hazardous material spilling at that scene. Oh, we are tracking some breaking news out of Toronto tonight. Police there say 1 person has been killed, 13 others injured after being shot in the city's Greektown neighborhood. We're told a child is among the victims. Media outlets are reporting that the suspect is dead.